शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। आत्मानमरणिं कृत्वा प्रणवं चोत्तरारणिम् ज्ञाननिर्मथनाभ्यासात् पाशं दहति पण्डितः स एव माया परिमोहितात्मा शरीरमास्थाय करोति सर्वम् स्त्रियन्नपानादिविचित्रभोगैः स एव जाग्रत् परितृप्तिमेति स्वप्ने सजीवः सुखदुःखभोक्ता स्वमायया कल्पितविश्वलोके सुषुप्तिकाले सकले विलीने तमोभिभूतः सुखरूपमेति पुनश्च जन्मान्तरकर्मयोगात् स एव जीवः स्वपिति प्रबुद्धः पुरत्रये क्रीडति यश्च जीवस्ततस्तु जातं सकलं विचित्रम् आधारमानन्दमखण्डबोधं यस्मिन् लयं याति पुरत्रयं च एतस्माज्जायते प्राणो मनः सर्वेन्द्रियाणि च खं वायुर्ज्योतिरापः पृथिवी विश्वस्य धारिणी यत्परं ब्रह्म सर्वात्मा विश्वस्यायतनं महत् सूक्ष्मात् सूक्ष्मतरं नित्यं तत्त्वमेव त्वमेव तत् जाग्रत् स्वप्न सुषुप्त्यादि प्रपञ्चं यत् प्रकाशते तद्ब्रह्माहमिति ज्ञात्वा सर्वबन्धैः प्रमुच्यते त्रिषु धामसु यद्भोग्यं भोक्ता भोगश्च यद्भवेत् तेभ्यो विलक्षणः साक्षी चिन्मात्रोऽहं सदाशिवः मय्येव सकलं जातं मयि सर्वं प्रतिष्ठितम् मयि सर्वं लयं याति तद्ब्रह्माद्वयमस्म्यहम् अणोरणीयानहमेव तद्वन्महानहं विश्वमहं विचित्रम् पुरातनोऽहं पुरुषोऽहमीशो हिरण्मयोऽहं शिवरूपमस्मि।
In the dream state, that individual self experiences joy and sorrow in the whole world projected by his own illusion. In the period of deep sleep, when everything dissolves, overcome by tamas, he attains the state of bliss. So we concluded in the last class saying that the power of the Supreme Brahman, which we described as Maya, we see it functioning when a person is in his individual state of consciousness also. So the waker who experiences the waking world, at the time of sleep, he spins a universe of his own. Now what is this power within him which makes him do this is the same power. So he says, Swapne Sajivaha, in dream that same individual, Sukha Dukkha Bhokta, he experiences joy and sorrow. So experiences joy and sorrow means any experience has this subject-object relationship. The subject-object relationship is very much available both in waking state and dream state. So in dream state also there is a subject-object relationship, and he goes through a series of experiences in the dream. Swamayaya. Swamayaya means by his own maya. By his own power of that spinning, what we explained in the last class, Kalpita Vishwaloke. It is a world that is imagined by him. When does he realize that it is a world of imagination? Is only when he wakes up. When he wakes up, he understands it was just a figment of his imagination in which he went through series of experiences, and as a person in the dream, who we refer to as dreamer, he was very much going through those experiences as very real, as very much affecting him. So that is the solidarity or reality of the dream that he went through. But upon waking up, he understood that it was a figment of imagination. So we said that with reference to waking world and dream world, there is all parallels. Whatever you go through here is what you go through there also. In fact, dream is created by the undigested thoughts of the waking world. So whatever is not fulfilled, it finds a way of fulfilling itself there. That is why sometimes in the dream you will find yourself experiencing something which probably would not have been possible in the waking world also. The reason is the same. You cannot fly in the waking state, but sometimes you will develop wings and fly in the dream if you have a tremendous desire for flying. Nothing apart from your vasanas is going to come up in the dream. It is all coming from that same stock only. But certain things which is solid and which finds fulfillment in the dream, that experience is over. Suppose you are lingering over something, it is not yet complete, chances are that you will dream about that in some form or the other. Similarly, the objects that you go through in the dream also, it may sometimes come as what you have not seen in the waking state, but it is just like an amalgamation or a khichdi type of a thing of all the various experiences you have had in the waking state. You may see a very strange animal which has a head of a tortoise, body of a lion, or a tail which is like a snake. All these things is possible in one creature, but there's no such creature probably you will see here, or it's not non-existent. But you have independently known tortoise, you have independently seen lion, and you know snake. All this comes in a very cooked form. That is what is this dream. So that way, dream and waking state has very many parallels, and it has no difference. It is only talked about as varying in degree. That's all it is. As we said, in waking state, we can consciously put in effort. That chance is there for the human being. But in dream state, it is just a mechanical exhaustion of vasanas that you go through. And one difference upon waking up that you find, which we said in the end of last class, is that the waking state is very solid in terms of the manifestation of the time, space and causation. The time is very pakka here. Each and every millisecond and microsecond can be accounted and doesn't deviate here or there. You take the time of earth coming around sun or the day and night, whatever be it, it's perfectly synchronized. Similarly, space, up to nanometer to millimeter to kilometers to light years, everything is very beautifully set in terms of space. Space is very well defined, very pakka according to the rules. Similar is time, similar is causation. Two atoms of hydrogen will combine with an atom of oxygen to form a molecule of water. This is the cause and effect. This will happen every time. It will never go this side or that side. The law of gravity, the acceleration due to the law of gravity, the other laws of thermodynamics, aerodynamics, Bernoulli's principle, every physical, chemical, economics, all the laws that are functioning are in perfect synchronization and according to the law of cause and effect. Every effect has a cause, and every cause transforms itself into a perfect effect. this concept of time, space and causation is there and available in dream also, but when you compare to the waking state, it is hazy. It is not perfect. It seems imperfect. Sometimes you might have experienced in your own dream also, that we said that you can go out of your house and suddenly you land up in airport, backside of your house, and there you take a plane and you go to New Zealand, and there you take a boat and come back to your house. Like that, it is very simple, and it can anything can happen like that. Or causation, you can just produce something out of something. Space, time, causation, everything is functioning, but in a very haphazard way, in a very ad hoc manner. Why is this difference? Yes.
Because your intellect is not fully available.
Intellect is not fully available in the dream. That is correct. Since the intellect is not fully available in the dream, how does it make this happen? In other words, are you saying, since your intellect is fully available now in the waking state, everything is functioning perfectly?
No. But when you're in the dream is functioning perfectly.
When you are in the dream,
So when you wake up and you look back on the dream, then you feel it is not.
Correct. Only upon comparison. That is very clear. As long as you are dreaming, it is a very solid world, and you don't have any doubt at all there.
So in that world, everything is perfect.
Everything is perfect. I am saying, when we wake up only, we find this sort of difference. Now, suppose what I am trying to say is, when you wake up to this world on a everyday basis, maybe for every person who is here in this waking world, and in every janma, probably if you are able to calculate and you go through this calculations that is here, is standard. It's standardized and it is so perfectly maintained and orchestrated. Let us say in your dream, yesterday it was very smooth and nice, and you went through a proper class in the dream, let us say. But today it can be something else. Tomorrow it can be absolutely something else. There is totally a incoherence in the dream. But that particular dream is created and dissolved in itself. When you consider that dream to be complete in itself, then it has one set of time, space and causation functioning for it, which is dissolved afterwards. So, but I am saying, in waking world, it is always perfect. When you compare that to the dream is hazy. So when you say it is the intellect, it seems as though our intellect is responsible for the functioning of the perfection of this time, space, causation. That may not be the case, because if you see that a person is even sleeping in deep sleep, okay, you are awake and you are looking at him, or you are looking at your own activities, even in the sleep, if he turns this side and he hurts his finger in the table that is by the side of the bed, there is blood coming out. That is also a law, and that immediately certain forces are functioning to stop that blood flow which is clotting. That is also, some forces are acting. So perfectly that's functioning as per what it is to function. He is not aware of it. He might even see that wound. Suppose if he is in a very deep sleep, he sees the wound after he wakes up only. He sees certain blood stain and he sees something has happened. Or something else he might imagine, but it has functioned well. But in this case, it is very clear that irrespective of, yes, when his intellect is fully available, he is aware of this. It's possible that he is aware of the functioning of the law of cause and effect. But the exact functioning of cause and effect is not dependent on the availability of the intellect as it is.
I think I know the answer. I'm not sure. This waking world is actually just one dream.
Okay.
Those dreams are separate dreams. So
Okay.
a separate time, space and causation working in each dream. So when it ends, that ends. But this, we feel it's continuous and it's working perfectly because it's the same dream continuing.
Let us assume
this waking state is one state. Each dream is a new dream.
Right. Let it be that also. But still, how does it explain the perfection of time, space, causation?
Just like in the dream, it sounds perfect, each dream.
So
This also sounds perfect.
So you are only saying that it appears perfect, but it is not perfect. It may not be perfect.
A dream is an expression of each one's mind. My mind is separate, and the world is an effect of Brahman with the Maya. So that is perfect because it's Brahman.
Right.
It is
But
history.
the world is
It is-
also according to how we see it. What I see as the world or assess the situation, what an animal does, what a bird does is very different. So that is also according to each mind, thought, intellect. It's again a separate thing altogether.
Right. See, what you are saying is that each and every one, how he perceives the world is according to his mind. That is clear. But each and every mind that is being projected, each and every world that is being projected and seen, seems to function in perfect coordination in itself. See, in other words, the time, space and causation also being part of the projection is not born out of the individual mind. This is the point that we need to understand. What is starting the whole play and what is creating the whole thing, which he is going to say in 2 verses later, is it is from that supreme self that everything this emerges. That supreme self, which is a all-knower, which is Sarvajna, Sarvavit and all-powerful, etc. That one supreme entity under whom everything is under control, in which the individual jiva, who is the experiencer, and the world, which is the experienced, which is made up of Prakriti. That means there is a beautiful coordination between this experiencer and experience that is created. So the cause of this is something beyond it. And that somebody who is beyond it or something which is beyond it is supposed to be all-knowing. Therefore, in that full perfection, in terms of absolute cause and effect, it is able to manage. In other words, the person who is doing this whole show is the person who is in control of the whole show. So therefore, with his unlimited absolute knowledge, he is able to do this in a very perfect way. So we see that in Gita it is given as Ashcharya. Our intellect really doesn't comprehend or understand why it is. But everything functions so meticulously, beautifully at the microcosmic level, at the macrocosmic level, where how the elements are controlled, how the individual is relating to elements, everything like that. But when it comes to the dream, it is this individual self who spins a web within himself. This person is not an all-knower. He has a limited knowledge, and let us analyze the dream which comes out of unfulfilled desires, etc. Probably that desire has no legitimacy in his this thing itself. Okay, so but therefore, in order to find a legitimate experience for it, he throws up something that is possible, and therefore he feels satisfaction within that small world where he spins the thing. So when you compare that particular creation, which is your own dream, and when you compare with this, the totality of creation, most of the things are in parallel in terms of the experiencer-experienced relationship. But when you compare the total time-space causation, the three axes in which the three-dimensional world functions, those three axes are so perfect and coordinated here. Here, since it is your own thing, you can do anything like that. So that is probably only difference between waking and dream world in terms of the expression. In terms of sadhana, we have said dream is just a mechanical phase that you go through. It really doesn't affect any of your papa or punya or anything. There is no conscious evolution or devolution. You have to go through based on whatever undigested thoughts and which comes up as vasanas. That's about all. So therefore, beyond that, we should not even give much importance to analyzing the dream at all. There are just two, ways in which we can relate to dream and use it in our own sadhana. One is that when there is a very consistent dream occurring for a period of time, in regular frequency, that is an indication of probably you being not fitting yourself in the right environment according to the right vasanas which are supposed to manifest at that point of time. Just to give an example, if a person has joined a ashram to study the Upanishads and the higher philosophies, where he is constantly getting, let us say, dream of running a business and dealing with people and marketing, all these things is what consistently coming. Probably he is not yet ready, or whether he has joined out of certain inspiration but not yet ready with reference to the maturity of his vasanas. His immediate environment and engagement is with reference to probably a householder's life or doing some business or something where he has to fulfill this. This I am saying not in a one-off case. If it regularly, consistently comes up a day in and day out for a period of time, it could be an indication. That way you can take. Second, and the most obvious thing with reference to study is, unless otherwise the example of dream and our own experience was not there, we just can't postulate or imagine whether this world also can be something like that. This becomes very solid. There is no other way to give that even thought or idea. So therefore there will be absolutely a complete cutoff in communication from the Mahatmas in the fourth stage of consciousness and from us, because what they are saying and what we are saying has no common ground. Even though it has no common ground, but from our own experience of dream, there is a possibility that we can look into. Is this world that I am experiencing, is it as solid as it appears? Is it something like a dream? Based on my perception, can this also get into a certain other state what they are talking about? So that very solidarity that I give to the dream, why am I giving to this world? This sort of analysis we can do. And I am not saying to dismiss of this world. Please, let us be very practical and clear about it, because what you are going through is very real now. But it gives a thought that what he says in that Jagrat, Paritrupti Meti, that Trupti is shaken. Very complacent. Yeah, I am very happy, very fine, everything is fine. No, everything is not fine. There seems to be some other state. There seems to be something more. That sort of a doubt and everything can come based on the analysis with dream. So dream can be taken for that. Otherwise, there is no point really going through the analysis of dream in any way. It is just, as I said, undigested thought flow coming. Just let it come and go through by itself.
So can the vasanas of previous janma come in a dream?
Vasanas of previous janma means what? It is your vasanas only. As long as it is...
If a baby who is not seeing much of waking world, can he or she dream?
Yeah, you see the baby, sometimes it laughs, it cries, so that means it is seeing something. So therefore what it is seeing as dream, in what way it has experienced this lifetime or previous lifetime, we don't know, but something it is inside that it is seeing. Very much possible it is.
And so can we get knowledge or jnana in dreaming state?
No, which knowledge? No chance. Whatever, even if you are attending a class in the dream where Upanishad is going on or Gita is going on, that is still a mechanical experience that you go through. So it is not possible. Sometimes even Swami Ramtirtha says this example that certain equations seem to get solved in the dream, but when he wakes up and sees, it has no connection with cause and effect like that. But all this is not jnana. But since he was thinking about the equation all the time, maths all the time, his chances are he will dream about that only. Like that it is.
Sir, so in one of the Upanishads, this waking and the dream state has been taken as one only. You mentioned it long back, I remember.
It is, I think, in the Mandukya. I do not know whether it is in the Upanishad, but in the Karika and the explanation, Gaudapada is sort of dealing with the dream and waking in the same way, from the point of view of Turiya.
So, the example being a limited this waking state can be considered to be a dream of the Brahman.
That is how it will see, that is the whole play of Maya. So when you say, it is very clear as far as the waker is concerned, he has a waking mind, and that mind is a portion of it or a small aspect of it spins a web, and that is a dream. So if you take the parallel, dream and dreamer and dream world is nothing but waker's mind. So waker and the waking world is nothing but Brahman's mind. It is very easy to draw that parallel. But Brahman doesn't have a mind. So what is this whole play? That is what he says. Saeva Maya Parimohitatma. So that is what it is. It is an inexplicable factor which brings about this causation. Otherwise, it is not that very, so then you will go into the understanding of somebody is sleeping and he himself is not aware of all this. Those parallels doesn't arise here. Brahman is as it is there, as it is.
Yoga Nidra, the state of Yoga Nidra, what is it?
See, Yoga Nidra is something which is attributed to Mahavishnu, right? It has nothing to do with any of our state of consciousness that we go through. Yoga Nidra probably is referring to that state where he is in a state of sleep, which is not a tamasic deep sleep as we see here. In that Nidra state of that Supreme Self, this whole...
because why I am asking this question, Niranjananandji, who is heading this Mungeri school of yoga, he told I learned most of the things in Yoga Nidra only.
I really do not know, because I don't know how he uses the term Yoga Nidra, but what in terms of a revelation that can come through in a deep state of meditation, another thing, how he uses the term, whether that is used as a Yoga Nidra. So we cannot go by the term Yoga Nidra. What he means is probably in a state of self-absorption, if that is the case. That is possible.
So, according to Vedanta, the waking world is considered to be Vyavaharik and the dream world is considered to be Pratibhasik. So it is only...
No, Pratibhasik is not referred to in terms of example as a dream world. The Pratibhasik is what you see as rope and snake within the waking world only as an example. When it comes to example, dream world is as Vyavaharik as waking world. Because it's a practical reality for the dreamer. That's about all. For waker, this is a practical reality and a relative reality. It's so solid. As long as you go through that experience, it is Vyavaharik. It is so real. So there is no Pratibhasika there. Yes, sir.
So you said that dreams are undigested thoughts and all your vasanas. One spend more than 35% of your life sleeping. The quality of dream of a sattvic person will obviously be far superior than a tamasic or a rajasic person.
Why?
Because again it's undigested thoughts and vasanas. So obviously the quality of undigested thoughts.
If he is sattvic, he will dream less.
Yeah, dream less and the quality of dream will
See,
also.
that is the point. When a sattvic person is there, his deep sleep will be much more. So therefore, now, when and what he dreams, we really do not know, and therefore we cannot compare. In fact, there are certain stories and Puranas where we talk about some people dreaming, and that is actually happening in the future, or God has informed him in the dream of the king, or some Mahatma he said, you marry off your daughter to this person. God has told his dream also, and to him he has said, somebody will come and offer you his daughter. All these stories we say, and these are the people who we can relate to in your example as very sattvic people. And these also, if you analyze to the core, it is again see, suppose if that person, in this case, let us say, I don't know, this is the case with, I think, Jayadeva and his wife. What is his wife's name? Padmavati. Padmavati's father dreamt that he has his daughter has to be given to a great person who is doing sadhana as a tapasvi in a particular ashram type of thing that he has set up. And so he took it as a Lord's will. And he took her and offered, and obviously Jayadeva wanted to continue his sadhana and did not want to get into samsara, etc. But somehow the relationship persisted and he ended up marrying her, and it was a very glorious couple. Both of them were engaged in service of the Lord. This is a great life. So obviously they are all highly sattvic persons. Now, when the thought of a marriage of such a lovely girl comes to that very authentic orthodox father who has also lived a dharmic life, etc. So the thought of the getting her married could have been the thought that is lingering. In that way, some sort of answer or something comes up in the dream. So again, it is connected with the waking world only. Okay. So when you are giving an example, really we do not know. These are all probably very exceptional cases of very high order and high caliber. But in general, when we talk about the dreaming of the different qualitative persons. A sattvic person who finishes off his experiences, meaning he is more, a person who finishes perception with perception, doesn't linger over, and his thought processes are more concentrated and towards the higher, etc. With minimum hours of sleep, he will get sound and deep sleep. So the chances of him dreaming is relatively less compared to Rajasic type of persons. So therefore, without that data or knowledge, we cannot compare what it is.
So exactly this is what I was trying to. So the next part is that so once you wake up from your dream, from your sleep, and you realize that it was a dream, and in this world also, once you really wake up and you realize it was all a dream, it is all a Maya. So then why is law of karma not applicable to dreams?
Law of karma. See, the law of karma is applicable in the dream, but I am saying that law has its own calculations. That's about all. So it is the law of, in the dream, who is the author or who is the karta, who is the total controller of the dream? It is the waking mind, right? It is the waker. So therefore, with your limited, and you are not all knowing, you do not. So why do you desire certain things which will not succeed or which will not happen? Your mind can desire anything, and it will not, let us say, put sufficient effort to get that or something. All this can mix up and jumble and come in a way in a dream. So therefore, according to you say that without any effort a mango should come and fall into my lap. That will happen in the dream. So your point is, why is law of karma not functioning? Actually, it is functioning. It is functioning according to your law. Your law is based on your limited knowledge. But this particular totality of this universe, when it is functioning, it is not the creation of an individual. That is what the theory of perception finally arrives at. It is not an individual who creates this world. He is not responsible for the world. It is through the individual that the world is projected for his perception. But somebody is making the whole thing function, making the whole thing happen. That somebody is not confined to that individual, what you think of yourself. Therefore, that particular entity, which is a perfect entity, has the law of causation also functioning as perfectly. That is the explanation. That is.
So, but if I'm doing something negative in my dream, it is because of my undigested thoughts and vasanas. That means my vasanas are negative. Thoughts are negative.
Correct.
So that is why I'm dreaming something. I'm doing something negative in my dream.
Correct.
So that law of karma should affect me, because then I'm a bad person or evil person, whatever.
Correct. See, it will affect in the sense why it is coming up in the dream. That, let us say, you are stealing money or you are doing some negative action in the dream. Just analyze as to why it has become a undigested thought flow and it is showing up like that. Maybe you are having this negative thought flow of taking the money from the bank or from other persons, etc. Not just societal norms, something within you as the intellect itself is saying this is not the right thing to do. Okay. So one aspect of you is not allowing it to happen in the waking world. But the power of your negative thought is so much that it needs some manifestation or extension. That which it does not find in this particular experience of the waking world, that it finds in the dream. Definitely when you wake up and you have this, you will not feel happy about this dream. To that extent, the overall thought flow has resulted in the overall agitation. Similarly, when you are you had a darshan of Lord, let us say, in the dream. When you wake up, you feel so happy about it. Okay, that is also you heard somebody's lecture and he was picturizing Lord Venkateshwara in Tirupati so beautifully that you got completely involved in that lecture. And that night you are visualizing Tirupati. And you are visualizing without any crowd or anything there, you are standing in front, you and Lord alone, and you are having a darshan. That's wonderful. When you wake up, you are so happy about it. All this is again a undigested thought flow. But that particular thing in the dream that you go through has no effect of karmic consequence in the waking state. That action which has come up by itself, like a spark from the fire which dies by itself, it has died its course. So the whole thing which is a totality the measurement of all the consequences and actions and consequences is taken with reference to waking world, your thought flow, your counter thought flow, your knowledge, your ignorance, all this put together is the karmic effect that will come. Right.
So does it mean we exhaust some vasanas in the dream?
Yes, in a way it is exhaustion of vasanas. That undigested thought flow, which is again a lingering karma, gets exhausted. That's about all. In other words, it could have been a little created vasana and that it's exhausted, or it is collection over a period of time, maybe few days or something, that it is exhausted. But it is, in a way, you can say exhaustion of vasanas only. It's a mechanical exhaustion of vasanas. Sushupti kale sakale viline tamo vibhuta sukarupameti. In the period of deep sleep, when everything dissolves, overcome by tamas, ignorance, he attains the state of bliss. Sushupti means deep sleep. Deep sleep is a state where there is no subject-object relationship, and this happens because he says tamo vibhuta. Tamo vibhuta means overpowered by tamas. Tamas is that absolute ignorance. In fact, deep sleep is an actual blessing of nature. Deep sleep is a state where we recharge our personality. There is a energy given to the body and the mind, and this recharge happens in the deep sleep. You compare this vis-a-vis experience of a disturbed sleep, you don't feel energetic that much than an experience of deep sleep where you feel energetic. Even for the child, they say the more it sleeps, more it grows. Even the cells of the body are growing faster and better. So, sleep is therefore a great blessing of the nature, as it were, for us. And he describes that state as Sukarupam. Sukarupam means a state of bliss. Why it is a state of bliss? All of us go through this, and it is in fact bliss. Except that at that point of time that we are not aware, but every one of us really get up and very much recall that experience as a great experience. It was a great sleep that I went through. It is so nice. It is so refreshing. That type of a sukha we don't experience or it is not comparable to any of our experience in the waking state. In our waking state, see, just as a child is finding itself completely in the lap of his or her mother, like that we are finding ourselves in the lap of that supreme entity, whatever it is. That is the type of sukha that we are going through at that point of time, but totally not aware of what we are going through at that point of time. Why it is called as that sukha here is, and why it is not comparable to any sukha of the other two worlds that we go through, waking and dream world we go through, is in waking and dream world, as I said, there is a subject-object relationship, and the subject experiences the object in order to get that pleasure. Every experience of us is directed towards pleasure, and this pleasure is derived when the object of fulfillment is experienced by you. So therefore, without that object of fulfillment, what we undergo is a state of agitation, is a state of restlessness. So the mind being restless is not a state of peace or bliss. When that mind comes to a rest as much as possible by the contact of the object, we call that as pleasure. Yes, a person who is having a agitation for cigarette, when he smokes cigarette, he does find pleasure. And there also, if you look at the deep technique or what is the mechanism that is happening, it is the same thing. The mind is quietened. The mind's agitation is quietened by the contact of the sense object. Or a person is very emotionally deprived and somebody caters to him emotionally, he is able to feel that pleasure. At any level of our personality, whatever it is lacking which causes a restlessness in the mind is catered to by an experience. That experience fulfills that, and the mind quietening happens, however temporary, that period is called as cessation of agitation or pleasure. So what is understood here is mind's quietude is the actual pleasure. So therefore now come into deep sleep. In deep sleep the mind is in absolute quietude. Mind itself is not there. Thought itself is not there. So therefore the thoughtless state is a super quiet state. That is Sukha-Rupa Meti. Therefore you are in a total bliss at that point of time. In fact, this deep sleep gives us a chance to imagine what the state of self-realization is, which is also said to be a state of thoughtlessness. What is the difference that is said? Again, now only we can only sort of imagine. It is said that in that state of thoughtlessness, you are absolutely an aware being. That's all. Only pure consciousness. It's pure state of pure consciousness. In deep sleep, the pure consciousness is there, but we are just not aware of it. We are in a state of total unconsciousness. That means we are still, you can say, as conditioned consciousness functioning. This is the difference. So, Sushupti Kale Sakale Viline, in the time of deep sleep, from your point of view, everything dissolves. From the point of view of deep sleeper, the whole world dissolves. He is just there in that seed form or whatever you call it. It is nothingness. You can't even say you are experiencing nothing. Nothing is not an object of experience. Absence of every thought, absence of every experience is called as nothingness, which you go through. So therefore you become a deep sleeper. And we said the deep sleeper is called as prajna. Prajna means a completely ignorant person. And this tamas, when it overwhelms you like this, you go into the period of deep sleep, Sukha-Rupa Medi. Now, Atma is the supreme consciousness, is that one which is waking even during the time of deep sleep also. And that is what witnesses the three states of consciousness. And when you wake up from the dream, it is that which helps you to recall that you went through this deep sleep. So the whole emphasis of him saying in this two mantras about the totality of this waking, dream and deep sleep experience is that all these three states of consciousness that you go through are conditioned state of consciousness. You are really not this conditioned state of consciousness. You are the Sakshi of the three conditioned states, which is the pure Atma.
Sir,
Yes.
A self-realized person will then not be dreaming. He'll be only in deep sleep then. If he sleeps, when he sleeps, then he'll be a deep sleeper.
So you are assuming that he will not sleep also.
No, he sleeps, then he goes straight into deep sleep only then.
See, as far as the self-realized person state is concerned, he exists continuously in the state of Turiya. From our point of view, whatever his body goes through, it may go through all the three states of consciousness also. We really do not know. Whatever is the body's dharma, that it will carry on through. So suppose if that person is writing a book and he continues his authorship, at that point of time he will think. And the moment you think, does he have a choice of action? All these questions doesn't arise. He is just merged with that consciousness and his experience of his consciousness is unbroken. It is unbroken. What you and I project with reference to what his body is going through is not really debatable here. Yes.
So I'm little confused. Deep sleep is complete bliss. At the same time, you said it is ignorance. So I think this is complete.
Yeah. What is the contradiction?
So ignorance cannot be bliss. I mean, unless we say ignorance is bliss, that's a different issue. I mean, it just be ignorance cannot be bliss. So you said deep sleep is ignorance because Amsik thing overtakes you. At the same time, it is bliss.
No, you explain your own experience of deep sleep. Were you not completely free from any type of sorrow or agitation?
No, I totally agree there, sir. But then I got totally confused when you said it is a state of ignorance. So that is why I am confused.
It is. So what? You tell me, when you were deep sleep, what was it? What was the knowledge that you had? Were you aware that you are a businessman, or were you aware that you are a householder, married, or were you aware that you are a student of Upanishad or anything like that? Absolute ignorance it is.
So a few weeks back, when you made some kind of a graph where we said this is a realized person. You said deep sleep is that comes at the lowest.
It is lowest.
But then again, it is bliss. So that is where the contradiction is.
The contradiction is we are given a glimpse of what that bliss is in this deep sleep. Except, as I said, we are not aware of that bliss at that point of time. We are not aware of that bliss at that point of time. We only recall that state only when we wake up. Now put that question or try to answer that question this way. This you can try if you only imagine this question, because this is not possible to really bring out this question from within us. All of us know that deep sleep is a state where all of us go through bliss. Bliss means a state of no sorrow at all. Everybody. Even if a person who is going to be hanged tomorrow, capital punishment, suppose he goes into sleep today, if he goes, it is bliss only for him also. Okay? So, all of us agree that going through a state of deep sleep is bliss. But, if you are told, and which is true, and you believe it, that this state of bliss it is being offered to you permanently. That means you sleep today, you will never wake up. If that option is given, not option, that is what is you are being told. Will you sleep that day?
Ignorance is bliss, sir.
Unless I get that knowledge completely, no, it's bliss, then that's.
No, I won't sleep only.
Huh?
I won't sleep only. I get it tomorrow. You're not going to wake up, you're dead.
Sorry?
You're never going to wake up, you're dead.
So will you sleep peacefully?
You won't sleep at all.
That's
That's because I think I'll die.
Because
I want to die.
we don't
We
believe
think
in
we are
that
the
bliss,
body.
that it is going to be pakka bliss. Guaranteed.
No. Is it not a guarantee on a daily basis that you are going through that bliss? That is your own experience is guarantee. It is guarantee. But you are not given a chance to wake up. Will you like that state, or will you want to be in that state?
So does that mean that?
No, answer the question. No, that is what it is. We don't like that ignorance. We will rather be in this agitated state of sorrow rather than it. So obviously this state is therefore better than that state. It is only talking about the quality of that experience there. That's about all. But this where we have limited knowledge is superior to definitely that knowledge which is absolute zero, ignorant state. And the state of self-realization, absolute knowledge, that is far superior to this. So therefore, it is not a contradiction. What we go through is a state of bliss. But as I said, it is a temporary state of bliss. We are, and it is the tiredness of sleep that we wake up. It is the tiredness of waking state that we go to sleep. This is a cycle that we go through. It is that's why I said it's a blessing of nature. If that period of sleep was not there, we won't feel refreshed. So compared to all the experiences in the waking world, that is a unique experience that we go through in the deep sleep. It is bliss. Again I am reiterating that what we go through at that point of time, we are not aware at that point of time. We can only recall only after we wake up. But state of self-realization is completely different. It's an absolute state of unbroken bliss. Here it is broken, right? Waking, dream, deep sleep, everything is broken. That is a state of unbroken bliss where you are in a state of absolute awareness and existence. So that is a totally of a different quality which cannot be compared at all here. So that state of ignorance, what you are, if you are absolutely doomed to, you will not want to be. And it is not our, because that is a state of, it is totally opposed to our state. Our state which is absolute knowledge and other thing, we will not be wanting to be in that state of ignorance.
So that awareness and knowledge are the two key.
That is the thing. In the absolute state, in the deep sleep state, there is no awareness as it is.
Sir, momentarily we do go through bliss even in the awake state also. So that's why we experience that bliss is there. But that will not be comparable to the self-realized state, is it?
What you go as bliss through waking state? Momentarily also.
When you are with the nature and when you are, your ego is not there, when you are sort of lost.
Correct.
So there is no individual.
All this has nothing compared to the real bliss of self-realization. where it is absolute dissolution of ego and where there is absolute no thought flow. Here, as I said, your mind can get quietude as much as possible. So you can have this temporary bliss sometimes in a merger in meditation, or sometimes in a temple where you are one with the Lord there. These are certain glimpses that you would have gone through, but or Manolaya happens in certain katha or something like that, where you are completely lost. All this is our small experiences, but in all these states, the mind is in a complete absorption. It is not unhighlighted or anything. So certain glimpses like this we go through, but to recall that again and say this is what probably self-realization is not correct. It is in a totally different quality which is not comparable to anything that we have experienced or will experience also. That is why in the Kena Upanishad it says, Yedi manyase suvedeti dabramevapi nunam tvam veta brahmano rupam. If you think you know him, what you know is indeed very little, he says. What needs to be experienced or what needs to be realized is still long way for you to go and ascertain, he says. Yes.
So the closest state to the fourth state will be the deep sleep state or the waking state?
Waking state is the closest state. When we say in terms of 1, 2, 3, 4, the first state is deep sleep state, second is dream, third is waking, fourth is the Turiya state. In terms of understanding the qualitative happiness, again I am saying, whatever you can go through and experience in waking state, as he says in certain ecstasies and all, it is just not possible in deep sleep. Deep sleep gives a glimpse of what is that state that could be where there is an absence of thoughts. That's about all is the comparison. And that is also understandable, I am saying, only after you wake up. So where is the cognition of that? The cognition of that is in the waking state. That is why it is said, deep sleeper knows only one state. Dreamer knows two states, that is dreaming and sleep. Waker knows three states, waking, dream and deep sleep. It's a more knowledgeable state. And the Turiya, self-realized person, knows everything. Now, waking state, obviously, which is the state that we have, is where we can put in conscious actions, we can put conscious sadhana, you can train your mind, you can evolve yourself and try to deal with your vasanas. Everything is possible here only. You can put in your self-effort to completely wipe away everything and reach the state even in this Janma also, that much of confidence and everything, and a conscious satsang, everything that is possible in this waking state only. Therefore, we have to utilize the waking state properly. It is through the waking state that you can go to the fourth state of consciousness. But when we compare dream and waking, dream to waking is a natural phenomenon. Here you have to put in an effort and reach you to that state of culmination from where you will be absorbed. So it seems like a step-by-step effort. Again, you see that this also works on the cause and effect basis on a perfect scale. You have to put slowly the causes towards your own evolution here. He alone, the self abiding in the body, completely deluded by illusion, does everything. He alone in the waking state derives great satisfaction through varied enjoyment of woman, food, drink, etc. In the dream state, that individual self experiences joy and sorrow in the whole world projected by his own illusion. In the period of deep sleep, when everything dissolves, overcome by tamas, ignorance, he attains the state of bliss. We'll chant mantra 14 twice.
Punascha janmantara karma yogat sa eva jivasvapiti prabuddhaha Puratraye kridhati yascha jivastatastu jatam sakalam vichitram Adharam akhanda bodham yasmin layam yati puratrayam cha Punascha janmantara karma yogat sa eva jivasvapiti prabuddhaha Puratraye kridhati yascha jivastatastu jatam sakalam vichitram Adharam akhanda bodham yasmin layam yati puratrayam cha. Again, through connection with actions of previous birth,
that individual self alone dreams, awakes, and plays in the three cities. From him indeed arises the pluralistic phenomena, and into whom the substratum, bliss, unbroken consciousness, the three cities dissolve. This mantra is just an extension of the previous mantra. It is giving the idea and extending it a little bit in the macrocosmic way. This waking, dream, deep sleep, this is the cycle that we go through on a regular and continual basis. Nothing apart from these three we know. This triangle is what we go through often. Every time we are in one of these three states only: waking, dream, and deep sleep. He says, Punaha, again. And in one word, he completely finishes what we will try to understand, the theory of reincarnation here. Those who have the Vedanta treatise may go through that in detail. He says, Punasya Janmantara Karma Yogat. Janmantara Karma Yogat. That's all. Janmantara Karma Yogat means in connection with the actions of previous Janma. Finished. Again and again you are playing in these three cities. Again he is sleeping, again he is awake. See, if you carefully analyze as to why we are going through these three states of consciousness, suppose you have certain work that needs to be done and you are finishing the work up to a certain point today, and then you go to sleep. Tomorrow you get up and continue with the journey of doing the karma from where you have left yesterday. There is a connection to the previous day. There is a continuity. Okay, and based on your unfinished desires and unfinished karma, which is based on your thoughts, which is based on your vasanas, all this is continuously happening. He says, Puratraye Kridati Yaha. Yaha Puratraye Kridati. That means he, that individual who is playing in this three cities. Puratraye means three cities. The three cities refer to the cities of waking, dream, and deep sleep. Sayeva Jivaha Prapiti Prabuddhaha. Swapiti Prabuddhaha. That Jiva alone wakes and dreams again and again. Why? Punascha Janmantara Karma Yoga. So that means, I leave you with this thought to think about. Just as on a regular basis within this lifetime, you see that there is a continuous play of this individual in the three cities of waking, dream, and deep sleep, and based on the karma and unfinished karma that he is continuing his life, it is just an extension of that he is going to continue this playing in the three cities in the next Janma also. Only difference as we perceive now is that this particular body is not the instrument of experience anymore. Some other body will come as the instrument of experience. But if you go technically into this Janma itself and analyze, this body itself has undergone various changes from the time that you are born till the time that you are now, and later also. So in this lifetime itself, if you see and understand this in a very lateral way, you will be able to understand how this reincarnation functions. Let us say you are born in a particular environment and a family. Suppose if that child is getting educated in a boarding school in Dehradun, something like that, then what happens? He, for all practical purposes, is dead in Calcutta and is born in Dehradun. So, this is not technically next Janma and all, but I am saying for all practical purposes, he is not available in Calcutta anymore and he is born there. He is going to go through the experiences of waking, dream, and deep sleep in that particular phase of life that he is going to go through. And that is all because of the previous connection with here, which has pushed him there. Based on his resultant desire, wherever he gets pushed, there he goes and experiences all the karma that he is going through there now. Now, in the process there, whatever he does as karma and puts in the deposit of his vasanas, whenever that particular thing gets strengthened and next set of vasanas require fructification, where his maturity of the experience is over there, it is a time where he will be dead there and maybe he will be born in America. That connection will happen. Again, there he will go through the same experiences of waking, dream and deep sleep, etc. This is a cycle that we see that is happening and continuing even in one lifetime. So if that is the case, it is not difficult to understand that death in this particular physical body that we are going through now cannot be the ultimate end of all. It is unscientific to say that everything finishes at that point of time. So therefore, however much anybody can have faith in their own religion which says there is only one Janma, etc., a little bit of scratching the surface and a slightly deeper understanding will say that it does not hold good like that. Certain elementary questions like, what about then anything that you can do and get away just by, saying that you are a true Christian or anything like that. Obviously, it is not that easy. They are also saying you have to lead a true Christian life, which is a proper way of, good way of life, etc., which is correct. But just because, let us say, a person does not adhere to this particular way of worship or something, is it possible that he is completely doomed? When you talk about one Janma, see, here also we are talking about going through hell, everything. In 16 chapters, I cast them into hell, says Krishna also. But what can be the understanding of that supreme reality or God or somebody who will cast you to a burning hell forever and not give you any chance of redemption, that really doesn't reconcile with all other qualities that we attribute to him as a great compassionate person who is ever ready to help you. So, unless otherwise you bring in this concept of reincarnation according to the law of karma, the picture doesn't get fulfilled. Yes, you will be demoted, but you will be encouraged to study again. If you study well, you will be again promoted. This will be there. No, once you have failed in this exam, finished. Rest of the lifetime you are doomed forever means that doesn't really not just gives any optimism. It is not scientific. It is not palatable or acceptable to any normal mind. So therefore, it is very clear and Vedanta or Hinduism puts it emphatically, and it is this thought is parallelly accepted in all Indic religions.
And also, the thoughts are energy. Energy cannot be destroyed, so it has to continue in some other body. So
yeah,
that is also scientifically also.
That's what scientifically Vedanta proves it that way only. But I am saying that the thought of that one Janma and it is over, it really doesn't gel in any way that we look at it. So there is no scope for this. So this theory of reincarnation fills in that gap. Why we say it is theory? Because it cannot be exactly proved empirically in the present form that we are understanding everything now. But lot of corroborative evidences and lot of scientific way of thinking as to what happens to, as Rupa said, with reference to energy of our desires, etc., which we'll continue in the next class, will point out to a irrefutable conclusion that there is life after death and there is death after life. It's both are a mutually dependent cycle that it will go through. Krishna says in 2nd chapter of Gita, he gives the full 15 verses about indestructibility of the Atma in the 2nd chapter. Upanishad, he talks only Upanishad first. And he says, therefore you should not grieve, Arjuna, because Atma is neither killing nor killed. Atma is indestructible. He gives a lot of arguments and the whole thing that he places forward. And then he says in the 26th verse, even if you think this is born and dead, even then you must not grieve. Because jatasya hi dhruvam mrityuhu dhruvam janma mrityasya cha tasmad apariharyate natvam shochitum arhasi. That which is born will die, that which is die will be born. So what is there for you to grieve about? The cycle will continue. At a very practical level he is saying. So that tasmat apariharyate, this is a helpless situation. This manifestation and unmanifestation will go on. So what is there to worry about, Arjuna? He says. We'll continue next lesson. Yeah.
So we describe Maya as that which is not and cannot be explained by words. Now, parallelly, if I make a statement that Brahman is always there, but it cannot be explained by words, will it be a true statement or it will be a correction?
No, correct. Brahman also cannot be captured in words. It is just not Achintyam, Avyaktam, Anantarupa. Everything is applicable to Brahman also. It is correct.
In one case it is not there, one case is always there.
No, not there means what? Where is it said?
Maya is not that. Not that.
No, you are talking about Brahman. Brahman is always there. Brahman is always there. Maya means that which is not there. In its technical term, that is the thing. That which is not there. So therefore, Adi Shankaracharya in a commentary, when in terms of finally concluding about the locus and existence of Maya, he says, for those who experience it's not there, it's not there. For those who experience it's there, it's there. He leaves it at that. It cannot be pinpointed in any way. That is Maya.
No, but in terms of description, when we like in I think in Vedaranyaka Upanishad, some place it is said that we negate everything. It's a method of pointing towards Brahman. And what you say, is this Brahman? No, not this. This one? No, not this. This one? No. Everything you negate. Whatever rest remains that cannot be captured after negating is Brahman. The same way we described the Maya in the beginning, they said that is this Maya? No, not this. Is this Maya? No, not this.
No, you have completely lost it. He said, is this real? No. Is this unreal? No. That is what we said. So the term Maya is given there as not that. That's about all. It has nothing to do with the explanation about Maya. It is talking about understanding the reality of the world itself and how it's created. So therefore, in any way that cannot be explained itself. We'll conclude with the bhajans here.
Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate शान्तिः